just disagree.
Our mortgage taxes are down. It's not a number we can raise, in my opinion. It's not my opinion, but they're facts.
Well, if you like, we can take your proposed budget and take a general reserve surplus of $100,000, and you can come back and allocate it any way you want. I'll make a resolution that we accept the changes you made in your budget and an additional $100,000 surplus be utilized.
Where are we getting this 100,000 surplus? From the cell tower one?
Out of the reserve.
Here's the problem I have with that.
Can I just say one quick thing, just so everyone on the board knows and everyone out here knows. The reserve money is, I mean, the cell tower money goes into the reserve. That's where it's coming from. There's no line that's sitting over there saying we have X amount of dollars in there. Now, we do know how much we put in there, but it's all in the reserve. So if we're going to take out another $100,000, don't come to this board next year asking where the cell tower money is, because that's where it is. It's reserved. The cell tower money is in the reserve. We do know how much we spent of it. We're keeping track. But it is still, just so everyone knows, it is still in there. I'm sorry, Jude. I know it's not.
Is your question? No. So from the standpoint of allocating by line, the 100,000 achieved that, and thereby we have the opportunity during the year. Since I've been on the board here, we have not used the surpluses that we budgeted over the years. The amount we've said $1 million, $1.2 million.
That's not true. Definitely this year.
We've had some horrendous years, and we said big dollars make budgets match, and there was nowhere, they would never dip into any extreme, or they were set up specific. Oh, well, that's one year.
I just want to make sure for the record it is this year.
Right, there's budget deviations from the 2014 budget of over 600,000 I've got in South Carolina to cover. So the budget for 15 is lower than the 14 budget and the 13 actual. And now, keep cutting, it's, we could put any number on a piece of paper, but it's unachievable. And then you're out of, we use the money. The money was used in 13, the money was used in 14.
We have to manage it, basically. Any business has to manage it.
Jim, I agree with you, and that's why we're coming up with a budget with 0% increase for the homeowners. And the problem I have is, my house is not for sale. I'm not looking to leave Stony Point. And if we keep taking this money, then eventually we're going to have to raise taxes or pay for this. So we're at a point where we came up with a budget that has a 0 increase for the homeowners. So to look to cut it, especially to take money from a cell tower money that's not going to keep regenerating itself by the sale of that. That's
Using it, I'm telling you that the cell tower money is in the surplus. We're not using particularly the cell tower money, we're using the surplus as a generic amount of money. It's a bucket of funds that are available for
How long
purposes.
can you keep taking that surplus?
I made a resolution.
What's the difference, I'm sorry, Karen, what's the difference between 8.5 or 7.5 and 6.5?
As far as
The commercial. The commercial. How much in dollars?
On average, for the small business, obviously.
And that becomes the problem, because if we pass this budget the way that it is, we will have raised commercial property taxes in this town by nearly 30% in the last 5 years. 30% increase.
And again, speaking that 73% of the business taxpayers are in your state and utilities.
I understand, but in order for us, and we are faced with a chicken and egg situation here, folks. I mean, we really are, because we're trying to attract large-scale investment capital. So for a small mom and pop business, like you were saying, it may not amount to a lot, okay, in terms of dollars and cents. But if we're trying to attract 50, 100, 150, $200 million worth of investment capital into this town to replace the jobs and replace the tax revenue so that we're not faced with an austerity budget every year, this just sends a very troubling message to the investment community. And we've been going down this road now for a number of years. A 30% increase is a poor track record. Now, we do have a 20% surplus. That's your money. It's not the town's money, it's your money. So if, and I agree with Jim, I think that the drastic increases in the overtime, particularly for the three departments, I think it was highway, sewer, and parks, right?
Police left out.
Well, that was a 200,000.
Right, but that was, that's not, that number is relatively flat from what I understand from where we are to this year. What we've done is we've prepared for a contingency that may or may not occur, and that's really what the surplus is used for. So in terms of the tax levy, being able to provide being able to reduce an increase as much as we possibly can, and make a commitment to the town that we're going to do that to try and attract more investment capital, then I think that there is money within those increases. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be increased. It's a matter of the sizes of these increases. And then also we have all talked on this board about selective, very selective outsourcing that could also save us, tens of thousands of dollars a year with respect to the benefits and other costs. How we estimate that, I'm not entirely sure. And then my last point, and this is a philosophical point, and again, this is my first time up here going through this. I have a real problem with the idea that we give elected officials pay increases in midterms, in middle of terms. That's something that philosophically I have an issue with. The Congress doesn't need to do that. We know how they spend money. So, but I think that we do have an ability to realize some additional savings here. Imagine if FEMA budgeted every year as if they were going to have a Hurricane Sandy or a Hurricane Katrina, right? We don't do that. Governments shouldn't do that because then, as Jim says, the money gets spent, and so we need to be mindful of that. And this is not about people not getting paid. If somebody needs to work an hour, we have the money to pay it. But it has to go with how the budget is done and what the levy is ultimately going to be.
All right, a couple of responses. This is not, no offense to FEMA, but maybe if FEMA did start budgeting a little more money, we would have thousands of people 2 years later still out of their homes.
Well, the federal government's probably a bad example for everything, but.
Well, exactly. Someone mentioned something about the county in one of the prior budgets, and they said, well, why don't you do it like the county does? I said, because it's not working in the county. That's why. I'm just going to go back to the poor track record that Councilman Vasili is talking about. In the past 3 years, and possibly 4, we've had a negative, if you added all 4 years, a negative increase to the taxpayer, to the homeowners. I don't know where the 30% is coming up. I don't have that in front of me. Which is fine.
I'm not talking about the homestead rate. I'm talking about the commercial rate.
Yeah, he's taking the commercial line then.
I'm talking about the commercial line.
He has specifically for that place.
This is a negative.
No, he's going on the commercial. He had the commercial, not it's over 30%.
Okay.
That's what he's doing.
Okay, 20.
No, 20
without this.
2015.
Oh, this is not budget, so the past 3 years, which was stated, we're not up 30%. However, that being said, I just wanted to make one more comment that Mr. White made, and again, we're just talking up here. You made a comment that, it may not have been a resolution, but the town board, and not this town board, but I know Jim was on it, myself were on it. I don't know the exact time it was a few years back, where we said the 20% that we wanted to keep in our reserves for rainy days and snowy days and everything else. And I agree with Jim, if it does snow and we go above and beyond our overtime that we have budgeted, we could fall into that. Not that we can, we need to, we have no other choice, unless we're going to go out and borrow more money. But Jim, you made a comment that it's from, we decided to do that for the safety and the sound of the people, and that was your statement that we're down here. Is that still not the case?
No, but if you're developing the reserve or contingency reserve, then you're also overestimating overtime based upon, a bad winter, et cetera, or storms, you double counting
So
basically.
I'm not overestimating.
But if your reserve is taking care of that.
If we use it. If we don't use it, then it would fall into the reserve anyway. It's different if we were talking about raising taxes here 10, 20%, or even 5%, or even 1%. Talking about a -1 as the proposed, the way it is now. And again, I'm not here to argue with people, but I'm just trying to, I'm just making sure, no, we're not arguing, I know that. But I just don't want anyone to think that, we're all in for the right reason. I've made my decisions, not my decisions, my proposals. That's where I'm going to stop. I'm going to go with the proposals that I made earlier. If there's any other ones, then we have to put the numbers out there. We have to have something in writing. We're going to come back here in 2 weeks from tonight, and we're going to start this whole process over. My budget, as I stated, that's the copies that were handed out tonight, if anybody wants them, is what I'm proposing. And if there's other changes, then we'll have to make them. But I will tell you, if it goes lower than this, I will.
It doesn't go over seven.
You say that's lower than that?
I said, if anything else is taken out of this budget, this is a bare bones budget, George. If anything else other than what I'm proposing tonight, I'm stating for the record, I will not be voting for the budget for the first time in 9 years. Actually, it'll be the second time. There's one time that I didn't vote and went back to the tentative.
Yeah. Does anybody else up here want to allocate the $100,000 I suggested? Because I just don't feel that we're going to come to a consensus on that. No, I'm just saying, it's for purposes of, I can make that, I made that as a motion for $100,000, you can come back at the next meeting and have me allocate that $100,000.
Just you're talking about reducing the increase in overtime for.
No, I stated 6 or 7 different issues. I'm saying is with the standpoint, yes, he wants individual line items. So when I said, for example, $30,000 on a mortgage tax, both of them indicated no. I said $75,000 on the overtime, they both said no. So the point is, there's $100,000 reserve, and I'm saying utilize that and manage that number. So you want to change that line the next time, but I'm looking at from an overall statement of reducing it by $100,000.
You think it's 75,000?
On mine, you're saying another, so just.
Well, I prefer to pay that overtime.
No, I know, the proposal I made was taking 73 or 75.
Yeah, I can agree
So
with
you're
that.
talking
My
about
original,
another.
and I had said this 75,000 to my proposal a year on that. But from a standpoint of, what do you want to go, you want to start going sewer, highway, police, taking overtime pieces out, and you go the mortgage tax like that. If you want to do that, fine. You gotta make that proposal too.
He's having a...
He wants to, let's propose something then. It's out there, it hasn't been, my motion's been seconded, I'm trying, I think it's coming down to an allocation issue.
You don't have to make a motion here. What you can do is put something right, how you want to change it, get it to the board, and that'll be your change, just like I did today. I came in here with changes.
I sent one out and you changed this, and basically.
I'm saying, come in here next month, or in 2 weeks, before we have to vote on the budget, say, these are the changes I'm proposing, and have, where they're coming from. If you want to do it now, we can state it now.
We also have a separate issue of the outsourcing, which every single person up here has discussed, the idea of selective outsourcing.
So what, you don't have reducing benefits by,
Because there's nothing in Stony that we're going to let something be worse.
it's a magic. It's 2015, that hasn't even occurred yet, and you're worried about things being installed.
I have to worry about the future, that's my job, and yours.
No, but it forces you to exercise some of those motions and actions that we're agreeing to. We agree to some of these actions, and they exercise. At the end of the day, you're gonna be developing more surplus if these actions get put into place.
But clearly,
So then what happens then?
if we're going to pursue, and again, everybody up here has discussed this and has been in favor of the idea of looking at, how we could selectively outsource and where to drop, our costs in terms of benefits and payments. How do we move forward with even discussing that in this context?
Well, he's saying it's not contracted yet, so he's not gonna, not.
You don't need my vote, you got to work.
No, I'm saying is that I'm giving you the opportunity to allocate it from the standpoint of you want to go back and allocate it differently. I proposed something, and you say on email, we were prepared today, you didn't send it to us today, your proposal, we walked in here, it's here, sitting here.
Yeah.
So, you just, You responded to my email. I sent an email to you, came back and said, I want to do this, this, and this. And then we come in here and you have a new budget here.
That's what I was asked to do last time, right, at the budget meeting, I was asked to come to lower, get it down. You just said today, you're asking me to change other things, and that's where I'm stepping up and saying, I've made the changes I wanted, and that's, you know, that's where I'm drawing the line in the sand. That's where I will vote to, that's as low as I can go, and still, in my mind, say that I believe it's a responsible budget.
So if you,
One of the things we asked for is a reduction in overtime. And I believe that's what was given to us, a reduction, a large reduction in the police overtime budget, a reduction in the Parks Department budget. No,
That's not what was. That's what we're talking about, is highway, parks, and the sewer increases in the overtime, and how we.
But I believe the budget reduced that overtime, am I correct?
Well, you're correct with the police budget, actual right now is how much? How much? 481,000 is year to projected for 2014. In the budget for overtime, I've got 275. That's a drastic difference. Do I think